All right. Welcome, friends. You guys wanted this. You wanted me to do live reactions to all of the Unearthed Arcana. And then, as discussed going forward, I will do a full sort of review live reaction with all of you here in the chat making your comments. And then, because it did so well, I will also make a TLDR version for folks who don't have time to sit through however long this video ends up being. So, that being said, welcome to everybody hanging out in the chat. I would have loved to have given you all more time to know that this was going to happen, but we don't get that information ahead of time. So, welcome, folks. We are here. So far, as of me recording and doing this video, first of all, say hi to YouTube, everybody here live in the chat. If you are watching this later on YouTube, also welcome. Hey, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, I try to do this stuff as soon as possible, so please consider driving that number all the way up to 100K. We can hang a nice plaque over here. So, as a high-level overview before we go too far into things, the folks from Wizards of the Coast have told us we will be receiving, quote, more Unearthed Arcana than we ever have before. As of right now, they have released a video that has told us about what this is, which is the expert classes, which does appear that they are going to be adding classifications to classes potentially in 1D&D. The experts being the Bard, Ranger, and Rogue, which is kind of how I have felt. They're more skill-based classes. So, that being said, we do not have the Unearthed Arcana available now. In my ideal situation, we will watch the video, and then post-finishing the video, the Unearthed Arcana will be live for us to go through. If not, we may need to possibly stop this stream, depending on what timing it is, and then start a follow-up stream. We shall see. So, without further ado, welcome everybody as you continue to come in here. We're going to head over to the Wizards of the Coast YouTube channel, and we're going to watch this together and react. I have not seen it as of this coming out. It is an 18-minute video. We will watch it together.
Hello everyone, we have a brand new Unearthed Arcana. We have classes, subclasses, we have feats, conditions, we
It's a lot of stuff right out the gate.
have new rules having to do with skill checks and attack rolls, as well as how a critical hit functions.
Okay.
So let's just delve in right now and have an overview of all of that.
This Unearthed Arcana is filled with things I can't wait for people to playtest. We're playing testing them internally here at Wizards, and leading the pack in this playtest for the classes are the Ranger, the Bard, and the Rogue.
Glad to see them. I feel like this is a strategic move. That Ranger is one of the first ones, as we all know the status of Ranger in 5th edition. Makes sense to say, hey, let's let's fix that one first.
People are going to see in the next few months, all of the classes from the 2014 Player's Handbook are going to appear in Unearthed Arcana so that people can read them, give feedback, play test them. Following after that, you're going to see a series of Unearthed Arcanas that also unveil new versions of subclasses, as well as some brand new subclasses for those classes.
Okay.
The total number of subclasses when all is said and done, 48. So we have a lot of fun things ahead of us to try out. But today, we're focused.
Couple of things. We're going to speed up the volume because I forgot we can put them on double speed, or at least 1.5 times speed. Topher Robinson here in the chat. Yes, I was going to make a point, and you kind of beat me to it. No Artificer in the PHB. Reminder that they are currently only reviewing the 2014 Player's Handbook, and because of the backwards compatibility surrounding the books, technically the Tasha's Cauldron Artificer should be forwards compatible with this. They also said 48 subclasses. So I will throw it out there if anybody wants to do quick math and count how many subclasses were in the Player's Handbook. Does that equate to 48? Because then we'll get to know, are they dropping any or are they adding any? again, the thought process is it seems like the process we're going to go through here is first we're going to review the entire player's handbook and do these new rules for it. Then potentially the monster manual, then potentially the dungeon master's guide. We are revamping the 3 core rule books because, again, in theory, the backwards compatibility of subsequent things should allow stuff that was recently created, like Monsters of the Multiverse, Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. Again, I'm just going off of what we've been told. We should be able to use that with relative ease. So they're just revamping things that were found in those 2014 books. Thank you, James. Zemke says PHB 2014 has 41 subclasses, so it's a few more. Okay, so that's 7 new subclasses that we will be receiving. Perhaps we'll see some things that we lost in early Unearthed Arcana making a comeback. So I am going to just go down here and speed up the playback to, we'll go with 1.5 times speed.
Focused on our friends, the Bard, the Ranger, and the Rogue, along with, as you mentioned, a bunch of feats, because each of these classes, like all of the classes in the game, has the option at certain levels of taking feats, including the new ability score improvement feat, which many fans rightly predicted is what was going to be coming. And sure enough, when you reach any of the levels that in the past where you would have gotten the ability score improvement feature, now you have the option of taking the ability score improvement feat, does exactly the same thing as the ability score improvement feature in the 2014 Player's Handbook, or you can take another feat of your choice.
Yeah, yeah, Umbral Zeal, it does seem like, again, drastic changes from the conversations I had with Jeremy in 2019, where feats were optional, as they are in the Player's Handbook in 2014. Feats are no longer optional, and this is just kind of, I think, a cleaning up the terminology. Instead of ability score improvement or a feat, you can take a feat at whatever those levels are, 4, 8, 12, and so on, and it just so happens that ability score improvement will be a feat that you can take multiple times, likely +2 in one stat or +1/+1, and that will just be a feat, and it'll be one of the few that you can take multiple times. And I think that that's just cleaning things up and making it a little more streamlined. It also removes the concept of ability score improvements only or feats being a variant rule. They're now baked into the core mechanic of the game.
If your group is deciding to go beyond the ability score improvement feat and the first level feat that you're getting from your background in the previous Unearthed Arcana. This UA also includes the Arcane, Divine, and Primal spell lists all the way up to level 9. And
Okay.
it includes a rules glossary that is filled with even more treasures than the previous one. And here, I want to pause a little bit and talk about how do you use these Unearthed Arcanas together? Because now that we have 2 out as a part of the 1D&D playtest, we would love for people to play using material from multiple 1D&D Unearthed Arcanas. The one main thing to keep in mind as people playtest is that the rules glossary of each UA supersedes the rules glossaries of any previous 1D&D UAs.
Important note, if there are rules in the first Unearthed Arcana and this one has conflicting rules, ignore the previous ones. It's the newest version. Again, if there is a rule that existed in the previous one that is not mentioned in the newer one, it remains the same, but the newest goes back. I am liking a little bit more of the decision on the how to play test. I would love if they just made a video called How to Play Test and told us how they want us to do it so we can know exactly what is the best way and what kind of things they're looking for, but either way.
So we'd love for you to take the character origin options from the previous UA, combine them with the classes and feats in this UA, but use only the rules glossary from the new Unearthed Arcana. Right. Because over the course of the next year and a half, we're going to try out different versions of core rules and then see what people think of those different versions. A great example of this is how we're handling critical hits.
Yes.
There it is.
So you and I, in our video last time, talked about the fact that the previous Unearthed Arcana had a rule that we knew was very experimental and had a good chance of not being what the community was going to
There you go, folks. I'm assuming we're going to get a little
cheer for. But we were interested in seeing what do people think, because there were some angles to that rule that we were fascinated in seeing how can this serve the game. We've already seen some of the responses, and you're going to see this time that for the current version of the playtest, we are using the critical hit rule as it exists in the 2014 Player's Handbook. So Again, make sure, if you're playtesting and everyone else is playtesting, read the new rules glossary, where you'll also see that we are experimenting with different rules this time around for the D20 test. This time we don't have the universal rule of a 20 always succeeding and a 1 always failing.
Okay, we're just going to take a little minute to say, I told you so. I told you if people had enough of a problem with the way these things were, and we kind of all knew they were, but it's brainstorming playtest content, right? You throw a bunch of shit at the wall and you see what sticks. If everybody came out for like, hey, we like the new rules for critical hits, great, WotC did a good solid move. But everybody, as you've seen, I'm sure, in a multiple different locations, whether the comments of these videos, the failure test feedback you left yourself, Reddit, what have you, people just poured out in absolute opposition for the automatic natural one, or automatic success failure, and the way critical hits were handled. And the next one we got about 2 months, or actually a little more than a month later, they've revoked that. Doesn't say they won't change it in the future, but they're listening, they're seeing what we're saying. Take the playtest with a grain of salt. It's playtest. It's there to be tested and possibly thrown out if need be.
Instead, we are playing around with some other approaches. Although there, you're also going to find a familiar friend in that we're largely using the 2014 version of the rule, with the catch that this time we're testing rolling a 1 on a d20, giving you inspiration.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Because we basically have 3 different modes we are looking at for getting inspiration in play. Last time, we asked everyone to try out getting it when you roll a 20. This time, we're asking you to try it out when you roll a 1. We also, in the previous Unearthed Arcana, had another mode in the human of getting inspiration when you finish a long rest. We've actually considered having that as a potential rule for everybody, but right now we want to try out the roll a 1 rule for everybody, and then humans have the special feature of getting it at the end of a long rest.
Right.
Now, speaking of humans,
I think I like the human having it being a long rest only thing, but I also like the concept of inspiration on rolling a natural 1. That's also interesting because it does technically hamper a halfling who would reroll the first natural 1. But either way, I kind of like it's some other games have you succeed, like you fail, but like you succeed with a catch. It kind of feels similar in vein to that.
and the other content in the previous Unearthed Arcana, the survey for that UA is still open, and the response has been tremendous. As of today, over 40,000 people have completed the survey. We'll see how many more people have completed it by the time the survey closes next week. We are then going to go into our investigation of what has everyone said about the different options that were in that UA. We will look at all of the satisfaction scores. And then in a future video, you and I will get together and we'll talk about what did people say. And then
great.
At a future point in this journey we're on together, we'll present a new version of that Unearthed Arcana incorporating people's feedback. That's going to be the cycle that we're all in together during this long playtest. Just like we did in D&D Next. We're going to present something, we're going to get the feedback back, we'll analyze it, we'll do a new version incorporating feedback, and then we'll get feedback on that new version until, in a few years' time, the game coalesces into the new core books.
This is all I've ever wanted, right? Transparency. So they put out this Unearthed Arcana. They obviously recorded this video last week, just based on the time frame. So over 40,000 people have submitted. The survey has since closed. They're going to gather and combine all of the feedback, wade through everybody talking about how they ruined Dungeons and Dragons by changing the critical hit rules. And then I like that they're going to sit down and present the feedback to us in a separate video. Rather than just like it being completely behind the curtain and we don't know what's going on, they're going to come and talk to us and say, hey, here's what happened. Here's what you guys had to say. And then at some point down the road, we're going to get Character Origins 2.0, including the feedback, or at least incorporating and making a new genesis of that. It's like, because I fully thought we would send in the feedback. We would just continue to get new Unearthed Arcana. They would never address it publicly, and like maybe we see it in the future. But this new cycle of put something out, collect feedback, talk about the feedback openly with the community, and then use that to genesis a new updated version of that. That's great. That's really well-handled design, at least in my opinion. If it goes like that, I will be thoroughly pleased, and I will be even more excited to continue this playtest journey with all of you and WotC as they continue going forward. I like this aspect. I think it's handled well. I also think it gives you a little more as a community and as players of D&D. Like, I feel like we can be more invested in the game, but also feel like our feedback's being heard because they're going to talk about it openly.
We're also going to have several videos all about this Unearthed Arcana that will go a little bit more in depth. It is important to remember, like, we have had a record-breaking amount of people download the playtest. We are very excited, and if you're watching this video, please remember, like, we appreciate all the comments on YouTube and other social networks, but what will really help us in the end is if you download the playtest and then take the survey that comes out and leave your feedback. That is how you help us sculpt the future of D&D together.
Yeah, filling out that survey is the best way to have an impact on where this is heading. Now, in addition to responding to what we see there, we're also going to continue to do experiments. So I mentioned we are dealing with the D20 test and getting inspiration differently this time. That's just simply our design process proceeding. That's not even in response to the feedback yet because the survey is still open. So
Again,
people are going to get to
last
see
week.
not only new versions of things that we've heard from the community that they would like to see, you're also going to see new versions of things based on our own internal playtesting and also just different versions of mechanics we want to try out. This is a playtest, and part of that is testing out sometimes multiple versions of things to see which one on its own resonates most for all of us as DMs and players of this game, and then even further, which options sync up well with the other pieces of the game, because D&D is a game with hundreds, if not thousands of moving parts, and we want to make sure that if anything shifts, things are really running together in a way that's going to make people feel in the end, this game is exactly what I want it to be. This time around, what we're asking people to look at are these classes, which also are framed in a way that is new for the current version of the game.
Expert.
Let's go ahead and dig into the classes then. So we've got 3 of the classes here, and then we've got subclasses attached. So tell me about what's changed.
So one of the first things is that framing that is going to be new for people. And that is that these 3 classes are presented as experts. So people are going to see in this Unearthed Arcana that the 12 classes of the Player's Handbook, as well as the Artificer, who, while not in the Player's Handbook, gets mentioned in this UA, each of these classes is now a part of a group in this playtest. The Ranger, the Rogue, and the Bard are part of what's currently called the Expert group. So hence the name of this Unearthed Arcana, the Expert classes. In future Unearthed Arcanas, you're going to see the other class groups featured, but we wanted to start with the Experts. Now, this new concept of class group, new for the current version of the game, is something that has appeared in D&D's history at various times, going all the way back to even the 2nd edition Player's Handbook grouped classes in a similar way. The big question is here, what do these groups mean? The main thing that they do for us is provide a way to deliver groups of classes certain elements of the game collectively. So you're going to see in this very Unearthed Arcana, some of the feats, for instance, have certain class groups as prerequisites.
That's what I was going to say. So this is, again, streamline and cleanliness seems to be part of the design process here. Yeah, people are throwing out 2E, 4E on this concept of expert classes, but to what Jeremy's saying right now, the concept of like, hey, this feat has a prerequisite, you need to be an expert class. And that isn't, there may be magic items that have, instead of saying attunement by a spellcaster, which that may still be a thing, referring to like, I don't know, sorcerer, warlock, wizard, whatever, maybe it requires attunement by an expert, meaning one of these 3 classes. So again, that's probably a poor example because experts, the bard, for example, can cast spells, but you get my point. This can allow more classification and moving parts to allow us to delineate things differently. And again, it's still playtest, but I think this could be a good thing.
You'll see a feat where it says you maybe need to be a member of the Expert or the Warrior group to take this feat. What that does is it allows us to serve up options to multiple classes simultaneously and also serve classes like the Artificer that might not be in the same book as the 12 classes that are in the Player's Handbook. Because since we indicate here in this UA that the Artificer counts as an expert, that means anything that members of that group qualify for, the Artificer qualifies for.
I like it.
And if we were ever to make a new class and put it into one of these groups, then suddenly it is able to tap into the shared tech of that group. You're going to see this in the next year or so, where you'll see magic items that, rather than having a particular class or a particular feature as a prerequisite, we'll have one of these groups or multiple groups.
I feel like
You're also going to see that in many cases, while the classes have retained their distinctiveness and their delightful asymmetry, where they work in the ways that are most appropriate for those individual classes, you're going to see more common pieces. So one example of that in this current Unearthed Arcana is all 3 of the expert classes have the expertise feature. The expertise feature is the signature signature feature.
Rangers
of
get
experts.
it.
And
Very
so
cool.
that means even the Ranger now has it. The Bard and the Rogue already had it in the 2014 Player's Handbook. Well, now the Ranger gets it too.
Okay,
because
I like
one
that.
of the aspects of the Ranger's class fantasy is being the best in a group, particularly at things like survival, stealth, so that the Ranger can be fantastic at what is iconic for them. And expertise is one of the ways that we do that. Another thing that the experts all have in common is that they are polymaths. They like to have pieces within their classes that are reminiscent of things in other groups.
Yep, cool.
So it is by design that all three of the experts have components within them that are reminiscent of things that you might see in the warrior group, the mage group, the priest group, but here mixed together in a way that is unique to each of the expert classes. Now we can dive into each of the classes individually and their subclasses, but that overview I think is exciting because it shows that we're not only thinking now of the classes as individuals and also then as a whole family, but then also in these subgroups. And we can leverage these groups in a variety of ways that I think are going to be really fun, not only in terms of the options that we'll be able to give people, but even when it comes to party building. Something we note in this current article is that when you're building a party now, if you want to create sort of a classic balanced D&D party,
One of each
one way
type.
you can do that is make sure you have a member in your group from each of the class groups. Also, something that people are going to see in both the Ranger and the Bard in this Unearthed Arcana is a list of suggested prepared spells. One thing that we have seen over the last 8 years very clearly is that sometimes playing a spellcaster can be a little daunting.
Right.
And so what we've done to make it a bit easier to ease into playing a spellcasting class that you've never played before is we provide from level 1 all the way up to level 20 a set of suggested prepared spells for the class. So
Okay.
you're going to see that here in the Bard.
Very
You're going
cool.
to see it in the Ranger. And in future Unearthed Arcanas, when we get to other spellcasting classes, you're going to see it in them as well, where we take some of the most iconic spell options and put them on a list so that, again, whether you're a new player or a veteran who may be just like, I don't feel like making a choice, please, D&D book, tell me, you can go to that class, look at the suggested list of prepared spells.
I think that's great. The list of prepared spells going from 1 to 20. Even to that point, like, right, great for a new player, but yeah, if you're if you're a veteran player and you don't have time, you don't want to think, you don't want to look at it, just, yeah, here's the list, I'll just go with these.
And just start with that. You still have, of course, the option every time you finish a long rest to change that list, but it gives you a nice starting point so that you maybe don't have to do quite as much homework when you decide to dive into it.
October Robeson, it does sound like prepared spell, like possibly the concept of known spells may be gone. And everybody may have prepared spells now because both the Bard and the Ranger had spells known. The way he's describing this changing on a long rest does sound like we will be getting prepared spells across the board.
A spellcasting class that's new for you.
So ritual spellcasting has changed, or rather people have more access to it now?
Yes, so one of the many goodies in the rules glossary is the simple but important note that we are playtesting currently that basically if you can cast a spell and it has the ritual tag, you have the option of casting it as a ritual.
Amazing. That's awesome. That's such a quality of life thing, right? That's awesome.
In the past, a character had to have a feature that specifically unlocked rituals for them, and we've decided to experiment instead with just the ability of, again, if you can cast the spell and it has the ritual tag, you have the option of casting it as a ritual. And just have that turned
Great.
on
Love
for
it.
spellcasters of all.
100%.
And all the classes eventually,
Send it.
and we didn't touch upon this, also can get access to epic feats or epic boons.
That is right. Now, every class, what was previously their 20th level feature,
Right.
they now get at 18th level. And instead, now at 20th level, those epic boons that are in the 2014 Dungeon Master's Guide, you now get one when you hit 20th level. Now, we have a suggested one for each class, but when you hit 20th level, you now get to pick. And those epic boons have been reimagined as feats, and many of them are also available in this Unearthed Arcana.
That's awesome.
Okay, let's talk about that for a second. Everybody's level 20 feature is now achieved at level 18, it said, or they said. And now you'll get one of the epic boons that existed in the Dungeon Master's Guide reworked as a feat with, again, suggestions of what you could take as the different classes. That's awesome for certain classes. People like a Bard, we'll see how it changes here. The Bard and the Sorcerer who really get horribly shafted on what their abilities were at level 20 Getting that at 18, I guess, is a little better. I'm assuming they're going to get a rework because their capstones were kind of garbage. But yeah. All right. So all we have is so this is what's in the video description here. It says a second series. In it, you'll find expert classes. 3 classes, each one of a member of the expert group, the bard, the ranger, and the rogue. Each one appears with 1 subclass. More subclasses will appear in the future. Feats follow the class descriptions, particularly feats available to the classes in said document. The 3 spell lists, including spells from cantrip all the way up to level 9, and then an updated rules glossary. The only other thing we have is a pinned comment from Dungeons and Dragons that says, playtest material coming soon. That was 26 minutes ago. Coming soon is clearly subjective. I'm going to go refresh the website and see if it's there. It is not there. If you were to go, as a reminder, you will go to D&D Beyond. You will go to the sources, to 1D&D, and then in theory, right here under the contents should be expert classes when that becomes available. All right, let's go and take a look at what all of you guys are saying over here. Make sure I'm not missing anything. I just want to close Destiny Item Manager because it makes a lot of noise in the background. All right, where'd you guys go? You're over here. All right, let's answer some questions and thoughts. Custom capstone can be a pretty good idea. Yeah, depending on how you want to go about it. I'm very worried about the GM tools as players are getting stronger and stronger. What is there for monsters? Guitar Guy Nick, they're going to revamp the entire 2014 monster manual in a future series of these. So we'll see what monsters get. I'm glad Epic Boon being reimagined. Added bonus. Tasha's, there's 3 sidekick classes, expert, warrior, spellcaster. Yeah, I think they very clearly said warrior in here, so I'm assuming that there's going to be 4 because there are 12 classes in the player's handbook. We know that the experts are the ranger, rogue, bard. I'm also curious if that will associate hit points, hit die, right? So if the ranger, rogue, bard are experts, do all the experts perhaps have like a D8 hit die? Do all the warriors have a D10 or a D12 hit die? So the warriors, I'm assuming, are fighter, barbarian, monk, would be my guess. It'd be really cool if they all got D12 hit dice. And then if we had something like priest classed, or whatever people are throwing it out there, healer, whatever you want it to be, and that would be like paladin, cleric, druid, those would be D10s, and then the spellcaster would be warlock, sorcerer, wizard, and those would all be D6s. That'd be like a cool way to also kind of associate where things go. I have said for a long time that I think one thing that would make the monk a significantly better class is to give it a larger hit die to allow it to do what it needs to do, being up in melee, fighting with punches, doing that better by being able to stay alive for longer. Artificer was thrown out. They said it will be an expert, so we know that. So in my hypothetical scenario, it would be a D8. Let's see what else we got here. People are suggesting Paladin. I don't think Paladin will fit in the warrior class. While yes, they can do warrior things, I don't know if they'll ratchet back or adjust the way smites and things work. But also, I gotta say, I just throw it out there. Rangers getting expertise. That's awesome. I kind of always included like in my homebrew fixes for the Ranger, always gave them something that would give them like double their proficiency bonus on survival checks anyway, so it being baked into the class just makes sense. Someone IDK, they announced today that a new playtest for 1D&D is in the process. It's called Expert Classes. You just missed, we reviewed, there's an 18-minute video. There's a link to that. If you expand the video description for the video, you can go watch it yourself, where they talk a little bit about what's going on, the process, and things of that nature. It says tomorrow in the video. Okay, well then maybe that's that. People are saying tomorrow. Let's go check Twitter and see, because they didn't even post it on their Twitter feed before when I looked at this. If it's tomorrow, boy, talk about blue balls, huh? but I was hoping like within an hour and a half we'd get it. Okay, it says the next playtest is brewing. Catch an early look. They don't give us anything. Come on, guys. We were doing so good with the transparency. Can we just get like a specific date? D&D Beyond didn't even post about it. Okay. Again, for everybody saying they already confirmed the artificer will be an expert. The 4 groups were mentioned in the video, were they? Okay. People have been saying warrior, priest, spellcaster, expert. Okay. Warrior, expert, priests, mages. Okay. All right. My bad. I said spellcaster. It's mages. Okay. Let's see. Paladin and monk are the outliers. One will be priest, one will be warrior. I think monk will be warrior and paladin will be priest. Again, the Unearthed Arcana is not out yet. The document itself, there's only the video to go off of. How do epic boons interact with multi-class characters? Well, you won't be 20th level in a class, so I assume you don't get one. Do you think there would be a martial class? We've already confirmed it will be warrior, so they edited the comment and now it says 9:29. Son of a bitch. Well, this will be a shorter video than I anticipated. I guess I'm calling out sick to work tomorrow. Because I guess that's what we're doing. All right, let's pull that up and just check. I'll check it with you guys here. I'm gonna pull it up. All right, let's check. Ready? There we go. Here we go. Playtest material coming September 29th. Zoom that in for you guys. Oh, hi, Bob. But anyway, you can see right here, September 29th. So we're not getting the playtest material today. Stay tuned to Nerd Immersion. I will continue to answer your guys' questions before we call this stream quits. But yes, I will be absolutely doing a live reaction tomorrow. Once the document comes out, we will read through it together live. So mark your calendars. I don't know when it's going to come out. Could come out at any point. But either way, mark yourself down. I will be doing a live stream covering that in full tomorrow once it goes live. Also, hey, at least they didn't leave us with it's coming soon. They told us flat out it's coming tomorrow. So I do appreciate that. All right. Back to your guys' questions. Okay. I always considered rangers to be fighters. Barbs and druids and other classes with amazing capstones will be even better. One thing I fear about grouping the classes is that it limits creativity. I don't feel like it. I mean, we'll have to see how it is handled, but I don't think so. People are suggesting warlock is a priest. It's possible. I suggested that myself. If every class has prepared spells and they all share the same spell list, Arcane, Divine, Primal, does that not make wizards essentially useless? No, I don't think so, Ben Reynolds, because they did say some things along the lines of certain subclasses and different things will allow you to cherry pick or possibly even have access to an entire other spell list. Napa Hughes, well, I thank you for typing. You're welcome. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you. Okay. Document is coming out tomorrow. I will be here tomorrow for sure. With some feats requiring you to have certain class tag, do you think that will affect the frequency of multi-classing? Possibly, if they are going to gate these behind levels as well as class types. I'm not going to say it's going to completely shut down the concept of multi-classing, but also now you know that at level 18, you're going to get what was previously your level 20 capstone. So the potential for an 18 level 2, 18-2 multi-class could be much higher, but also that kind of carrot on a stick of a level 20 epic boon, if you make level 20 in a class, potentially could be enough to trigger people to keep single class the whole way through. We're going to take a look at the epic boons in the DMG here in just a sec to see what's going on. Let's be honest, most of the new stuff is going to get backlash, will be pushed back, and there will be minimal changes. We'll see. Why 18th and not 17th? Probably to stop the subclass, the 3-level dip. My guess would be. What boons? We're going to take a look at that in a sec. Do you think they will end up adding Artificer to the new core rulebook? Possibly. I would like to think so, but they're only reviewing stuff that was in the existing book, so that's why it's not mentioned here. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Warlock, Wizard, Sorcerer will be the mage. They are a more quintessential mage. So I'm going to stick by. You heard it here first. All right. Expert is going to be, as we already know, Bard, Rogue, Ranger, with Artificer added to that at a later point. I'm going to say that the Warrior is a Fighter, Monk, Barbarian. Priest is Cleric, Druid, Paladin. And Mage is Sorcerer, Warlock, Wizard. I am also, again, going to officially state here that I do believe hit dice will be tied to class. So anything that is an expert will have a d8. Anything that is a mage will have a d6. Anything that is a priest will have a d10. And anything that is a warrior will have a d12. That is purely speculation based on what I think, but I think that would work out well. It would also, warlocks, depending on how they adjust the spell casting, a little bit weaker. Druids a little bit stronger, clerics a little bit stronger, monks significantly stronger. We'll see. Let's see. I think that certain subclasses might gain access to certain feats that are locked to other classes. Yes, I wouldn't be surprised if there are subclasses that let you be like, you can be considered a warrior for the purposes, like a paladin, for example, may have a class feature that says like, for the purposes of choosing feats, you can be considered a warrior or something like that. So you could take feats that wouldn't normally be allowed by your class. Or maybe the cleric or the druid has something that allows them to take something from the mage class. Same thing with the bard, right? To kind of allow you to pick and choose, or at this level, you can choose, maybe it's level 8. At level 8, you could choose a feat that is for either the priest class or the warrior class. Things like that. For you could be a cleric, you can get a multi-class feat to get the primal tag. Yeah, so I assume it's going to be something like that. I'm curious if they will ever consider putting Warlock back as an intelligence caster. They might, right? It was in the playtest for 5th edition. The Warlock was an intelligence-based caster. I do think we should try to keep things separate. So, right, we have the Artificer, which is technically an intelligence-based caster, and we have the Wizard, so that's 2. We have the Cleric and the Druid are Wisdom, and then we have 4. We have the Paladin, the Bard, the Sorcerer, and the Warlock are all Charisma-based. I think you take 2 of those and maybe separate it out. Perhaps you keep the Paladin as Charisma and the Bard as Charisma. I still vote for Constitution-based casting sorcerers. I don't think we'll ever get it, but I think that could be pretty cool. You make the Warlock and the Sorcerer Constitution-based, maybe? That could be interesting. Or maybe, intelligence, make the Warlock intelligence and the Sorcerer's Constitution, because it all comes from its blood. I don't know. I have made a video on epic boons long time ago, but we can make another video on it. Gonna finally add Artificer as a core class. I hope they add it in the SDR. Yeah, it would be great to have the SRD updated to include the Artificer, but I don't even know if we're gonna get an SRD or an open game license for whatever this is, because that's a way for them to really keep the money for themselves. I didn't skip Ranger. Ranger is an expert. We know that. You think they will have subclass feature will appear at the... Do you think that they will have subclass feature will appear at the same level like what they wanted to do with the Strixhaven subclass? Possibly. If they bring back D4 hit die, that would be nuts. I don't think we're going to get D4 hit dice again. That would be wild, though, to go back to the old school. D12 hit die monk? I think that's fair. Well, I mean, so... I don't think it's a stretch that a lot of people have issues with monks, right? There are plenty of people, if you look around on the internet, that will tell you that monk is a horrible class in 5th edition. I tell you, it was one of the worst classes in 3rd edition, right? It was real bad because it was so multiple attribute dependent, right? You needed dexterity for your armor, wisdom for your abilities, constitution to be able to survive hits, and strength to actually be able to hit things. They condensed some of that down by removing strength as a requirement by having you just use dexterity. But, you're also supposed to be a class that's, with the exception of certain ones that have access to weapons or kind of long-range attacks, you are the get up in somebody's face and punch them, and you have a D8 hit die. I was thinking at least give them a D10, and then possibly this concept of a D12 also works for me, Where like, hey, I'm gonna get up in your face and I'm gonna punch you. I at least should be able to take a hit without going down. This is an announcement about the announcement of the announcement. 100% true. Make the sorcerer Constitution caster. Still stick by it myself. Yep, we saw the 929, so we know it's coming tomorrow. Paladin could be a Constitution caster as well. I don't disagree with that. Yes, I understand that Constitution... Well, again, you don't know that concentration will be Constitution-based. Perhaps concentration will become based around whatever your spellcasting ability is. I don't think so, but that could be a change they take too, right? A concentration check for a wisdom-based caster might be a wisdom check. Maybe it would be a check, not a saving throw. That could be an interesting concept, right? And if you think about it, if I'm using my mental capacity to focus on this spell to keep it up, why does my bodily constitution be the thing that determines whether I can concentrate on it or not? Right? Like, that could be a cool thing. I'm an intelligence-based caster, and I'm physically or mentally tasking keeping this whole person on this enemy. And then I get hit with damage. I need to make an intelligence saving throw to maintain concentration, to maintain my focus, not my physical body. So that could be a cool way to change that up. And then if everybody's concentration checks, again, maybe they're not saving throws anymore. Maybe they're just a straight check, so you can't kind of cheese it with a saving throw. I don't know. But if it does maintain the way it is currently, then yes, a constitution-based caster is a much stronger caster because of concentration checks. And because obviously hit points, you're kind of double dipping in that everybody wants Constitution for more hit points, but you also get Constitution as your casting stat. So I get why it's not the best move, but it could be an interesting change to switch things up a little bit. Or like a new option for another wisdom-based spellcaster. We need an intelligence-based caster or intelligence-based martial to balance it. Well, the artificer kind of fits that, sort of. Con-based casting would be very strong. We talked about that. Can we download this? No, Oxymoron. It does not come out till tomorrow. Love that Rangers are getting expertise. Agreed. Wizard Chef D4 hit die. Yeah, back in the day. That's what it was like. I could see a D10 hit die monk, but a D12 is interesting. Yeah, I'm just speculating, right? I could be wrong. We might find out that the expert class ranger has a D10 hit die. And once we get the Unearthed Arcana, this can completely shut down and that's the thing, right? We will know whether my concept of hit die tied to classes is truthful tomorrow. Because as it stands currently, the Rogue and the Bard have a D8 in 5th edition, and the Ranger has a D10. If the Ranger is changed to a D8 come tomorrow, then I think my idea has some credence to it. Let's see. Ranger's also Wisdom. Oh yeah, I keep forgetting about Ranger. That was my bad. They are spellcasters. I always forget about Rangers. You're right. That's another wisdom class. My bad. So maybe that will be the thing then, to that point, because I did forget Ranger, and now I see what you guys are saying. So maybe it'll be 3 then, right? It'll be Ranger, Cleric, Druid are Wisdom, Paladin, Sorcerer, Bard are Charisma, and then Artificer, Warlock, Wizard are Intelligence-based. That seems probably more likely if you look at it that way, but I don't know. Let's see. Yeah, Tom Davis still do your Darkest Timeline video. It's kind of hard because they keep changing things, so I don't know what my Darkest Timeline looks like anymore. It seems like we're getting closer to some of it being a reality, but PDF won't come out till tomorrow. Intelligence-based Ranger? That could be interesting. I love it as spellcasting, concentration. Yeah, monks and fighters get a D12. Wonder if barbs would get something else to make up for not getting the hit die buff. I mean, barbarians are pretty solid as it is, rather. Maybe concentration will be like AC. Possibly, but I don't think they want to add, like, they're not seemingly looking to add wholly new mechanics too much, like where, like, you have to hit a certain, like, concentration AC. Maybe though. It kind of reminds me also like spell resistance from older editions, but it's about shrugging off the pain. I guess I could see that, but like, I mean, there's been instances where, someone could take physical damage but still maintain focus on something. Um, I describe concentration on a spell like holding in number 1. If someone hits you hard enough, you let it go. I guess that's fair. Because sword is ouchy on body, not on mind. I guess that's fair. People are saying concentration check should be intelligence. Legendary resistance and concentration is important. I hope it stays a save. That's fair. AC is Dex plus base bonus, and is so underused. You've been punched in the face. It's kind of hard to keep focus on anything when you get punched in the face. I think Constitution makes sense. Yeah, maybe. It'd be nice if they made it easier to do a Strength monk than a Strength ranger. Dex paladin slaps. I'm sure it'll pretty much be the same way you would do it now as you did back, currently. You think they will make it less abilities Dex based so they give more love to other stats? I think Strength is going to have to get some kind of a bonus in this. I'm not sure exactly what it will be. Perhaps it again could be something like older editions where, wielding a weapon two-handed gets you 1.5 times your strength modifier or 2 times your strength modifier in damage for, again, that very much forces people to focus on two-handed weapons. But I do think strength needs something to make it a little more in line with Dex. I would be surprised if clerics and druids have a larger hit die than ranger. I guess we'll find out, right? What about giving classes spellcasting options? What about giving classes spellcasting options, stat options, like the Blood Hunter? Oh, where you could pick intelligence or wisdom? That would be interesting. Fundamentally, that's more or less what we're talking about here, right? Like, the Blood Hunter currently has you can be an intelligence or a wisdom-based caster you pick. Again, that's not an official class, but perhaps they could do something similar. We have seen a lot of the feats and things go in the way of, like, intelligence, wisdom, or charisma is your casting stat you pick when you choose X, Y, or Z. Perhaps that will be how they handle it. I think that will cause a massive... It's providing so much accessibility into the game and options for allowing people to be like, I'm an intelligence-based druid. Now let me think about what that looks like and how I get my magic that way. Or I'm a charisma-based druid and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, I could actually see in that concept get behind that, but I imagine the backlash will just be insane. The amount of people that will be like, this is not Dungeons and Dragons, this is ruining everything. Druids are wisdom-based, hands down. No charisma druids in my D&D. I could be wrong, but, Paladin can choose wisdom or charisma. Yeah, right, stuff like that. Right? I mean, in 3rd edition, paladins were wisdom-based, and it was another one of those multiple attribute dependency situations where their spellcasting was wisdom, but their class features were charisma. So I could see the concept of allowing it to be a choice. Would love it if they dissociated a class's casting from a particular attribute, which is what we just talked about, wisdom, intelligence, or charisma. The Unearthed Arcana releases tomorrow. Want an intelligence cleric or charisma druid? Go nuts. Yeah, that's what we just said, right? I actually said all that before I read your comments, so I guess, we're all on the same wavelength here. What about a revised Mystic? I don't think they're going to bring the Mystic back, not for a while. Unless they decide they're going to do Dark Sun, I don't see us getting a Mystic. When playtest stuff arrives for Monk Warrior, I'd love to see some more Monk love. Yeah, I would agree. Let's see. I doubt hit die will tie to class groups. We'll find out tomorrow. Like I said, we'll literally know tomorrow whether that holds any water. Warlock should be intelligence. Because of how they've been doing things, yeah, pick your mental stat. That's a possibility too. Will Rangers lose extra attack to match other experts? That is a question we will see. Perhaps extra attack will be tied to a subclass for the Ranger. Or not. We'll find out. I'm very excited to see. I'm not as interested in the Bard or the Rogue come tomorrow. I'm most interested in the Ranger because this classifying it with these 2 other classes that are, again, routinely not 2 attacks, that are routinely more skill and kind of flighty, as it were, as more of like frontline fighters, not kind of. So I'm very curious to see what they do with the Ranger. And, fingers crossed, guys, this is the Ranger we've all been hoping for, and it actually fixes all the problems. And I am not optimistic enough to believe that will be true. There's enough of a cynic in me to say it probably won't do everything, but maybe. And I hope The subclass that we get, the one that's included, is the Beastmaster, and it just knocks my socks off. But we'll see what comes out tomorrow. Strength needs a buff, and Con needs some skills. That's a problem. Constitution and what skills, right? I mean, like, there's always the concept of, like, you could make athletics checks using Constitution if you, like, needed to. If it's, like, a long, like, an endurance check. I don't know. If two-handed weapons mean 2 times strength mod, then you can also dual wield with each attack, adding in your ability. That could be something, right? You know, maybe something like that. Just to show the, is it, like, prestige classes? We're not really sure at this point. Okay, I think you can see mages D6, expert D8, priests D8, warriors D10. Bring the barbarian down to a D10. That's possible too. Let's see. Dude, the backlash will be backlash. Look at what happened with the movie trailer. Yeah, fair. Do you think Fizzbands is worth making? Yes, Sean Cornish. You are here in the chat, and I'm going to address you specifically. Sir, I see every one of your comments. I promise you, I will make a Fizzbands Treasury of Dragons monster video by the end of next week. You've been heard. I see you. I will make the video. Do you think this grouping allows for more classes? Potentially it does, right? I still feel like Wizards of the Coast is sticking with the kind of concept of the archetypical characters, right? You know, this is something we see in other games. Like, we're not going to add a new class to the game unless there is something fundamentally that doesn't exist. And for me, I do feel like a necromancer is something that doesn't exist currently in Dungeons and Dragons. It could be its own thing. Although we don't know what the updates they're going to make to the wizard, if the necromancy is going to be a focus on it. Could that possibly fix the issue? Because as it stands currently, nothing makes a good necromancer in 5th edition, to the point where I designed my own level 1 to 20 class basically in the process of doing that. So who knows? I would love a non-magical ranger for this. That could be interesting too, a non-magic ranger. We've seen that toyed around with in the past. Well, ranger has extra attacks part of the subclass, yeah. What about paladin, joiner, or what are the most important things they said? Well, one, it's not coming out till tomorrow. So that's one of the big things. Yeah. TLDR, we are getting subclasses tomorrow. The 3 classes are going to be called the expert class group. It is Bard, Ranger, Rogue. The key fundamental thing. This is something else no one's talking about. We're going to get to this in a second. What makes an expert unique is that the expert classes get access to expertise, which also I don't feel like anybody touched on. That means the artificer will have expertise when they officially make it one. So consider that. I don't feel like anybody's talking about that yet. The artificer will have expertise once this transition is officially made. So that means, folks, hang on, to that point, every one of these other classes will have to have a thing, right? If expertise is the thing for experts, what is the quintessential standalone feature for the warriors, the mages, and the priests? What are their things? My immediate thought for the priests is channel divinity, and that could possibly be how the druid does wild shape. It can use its channel divinity to wild shape, and that might be how that works. But what about the mages and the warriors? The Drake Warden is pretty solid. Physical intimidation with Constitution? Yeah, possibly. Are you not happy with the Ranger changes in Tasha's? I'm not happy with them, no. Let's see. Nobody wants to wait till tomorrow, Armand, but here we are. Necromancer being a subclass for Sorcerer could be interesting. It could, yeah, that's definitely not a bad idea. If they're looking at stuff like PF2E, they could be establishing its intention of making regular releases, new classes. That could be something too. We don't really know what's going to happen. They mentioned 48 subclasses. That is 7 more than is currently in the player's handbook. Yes, so we will get at least 7 more subclasses, which is pretty cool, which has the potential to do a lot of interesting things what they want to do. Extra attack for warriors, most likely. Agreed. I don't know if it'll be extra attack is locked to only the warriors. Perhaps it could be something like an action surge or a second, maybe not action surge, but maybe like a second wind, kind of like internal self heal, maybe something similar to a rage, some form of damage reduction. Again, I think they don't want to take away the identity of the classes, but I also feel like the channel divinity for paladin and cleric wasn't the core identity of the class. It was a thing they could do, but it wasn't like if you give that to a druid and allow them to have that be their like how they handle wild shape or what have you. I don't think that takes the identity away from that. But I do think giving the monk or the fighter rage takes that away from the barbarian. So I don't know what it would be. Perhaps it's a bonus action attack, right? You know, they all kind of have different ways to do that. Maybe that's the warrior piece. We already know that ritual spellcasting will be a thing for anybody who has spellcasting, because I was originally going to suggest that might have been something that the mages would have access to, but we know it's not that. Perhaps mages will have access to change out their cantrips on a long rest. I don't know. Let's see. Action surge. It might be action surge. Meta magic. Yes, Camel Wars. Meta magic. I bet you will be the function of the mages. That's perfect. That's probably exactly what it will be. Meta magic is for the mages. Maybe action surge is for the warriors. Channel divinity for the priests, and expertise for the experts. That actually sounds pretty good. Let's everybody mark that down. We're going to call that now until we see what happens as time goes on. But we're currently stating as of 1:46 p.m. Eastern Time on the 28th of September, 2022, that expertise will be the core function of the experts, action surge will be that of the warriors, meta magic will be for the mages, and channel divinity will be for the priests. Ooh, hang on. Maneuvers. I stand corrected. Perhaps, Soma, to your point, perhaps maneuvers will be the things tied to the warriors. That is also a good point, right? The kind of dissolve the battle master subclass or tweak it in some way for the fighter and just bake the maneuvers into all the warrior classes so they can all distracting strike. And perhaps there will be a subclass for barbarian, monk, and fighter that takes that to another level and gives them more superiority dice and focuses more on that concept. That also could be something that I could see happening, the maneuvers for the warriors. I like that too. At the bottom, did I make it to the bottom? Nope, I didn't. Nope. Here we go. Scrolling back up. So could there be a subclass for class groups? Subclass for maybe? Artificer will be less magic based. We'll see how they handle the magic on the ranger and the bard tomorrow, since they are considered experts. We'll see if that can kind of give us any insight to what they'll do to the artificer. Sorry guys, I'm just reading through your comments. Warriors get extra attack, meta magic for that. There we go. Warriors get extra action surge. Warriors I could see getting second wind. That could be something too. Warriors I'd say either action surge or second wind. I do feel like one of these three, right? Action surge, second wind, or the thing is, you look at expertise, and expertise is kind of like a really powerful always on ability. And second wind is like a once per short rest. Again, we don't know if short rests are even sticking around. Perhaps there's more use to that. Maybe it's proficiency bonus times per long rest they could second wind. But I do still like the concept of maneuvers being baked in. Warrior could be the third and fourth attack. That could be it too, right? Barbarians with third and fourth attacks would be huge. Monks kind of already have that in the form of Flurry of Blows, but maybe that'll get tweaked. We don't know. No, the PDF comes out tomorrow. Josh Kersey says Warriors equals extra attack, Mage equals full spellcasting, Priest equals channel divinity. The Ascetic DM. Hello, Ted. Long time immersed nerd. Glad I finally got to catch a stream. Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Again, be sure to come out tomorrow when we do a reaction to the actual PDF once it's released. Fighter is the most vanilla and lackluster class on its own. Making battle maneuvers a basic class feature would be ideal. Agreed. I don't know if that'll be a base feature of just the fighter or, again, possibly of the warrior type. But either way, very cool. Hope the barbarian won't get maneuvers because it clashes with the theme for me. I can't help you there. You don't have to use them. Have they said when they're putting it out? It'll be out tomorrow. Warrior class gives extra maneuvers. That could be something too, right? So if this is extra attack for warriors, no extra attack for paladin would suck. Agreed. We'll see, right? You never know. Well, they do have tool expertise. Yes, that is true, but no one like this would be for skills as well. Messing with extra attacks could be terrible for game balance. I'll agree. I don't think it's going to go extra attack is tied to specific things, but I could be wrong. You know, if you have a big enough heavy hitting way to jack up your damage, then it almost doesn't, you almost don't need a secondary attack. Perhaps the arcane category would allow wizards arcane recovery. That could be something too. The ability to get spell slots back. That could also be something unique for the mages. Yeah, expertise in weapons, perhaps. Maybe something like an old weapon focus style thing where they get a bonus to hit or possibly to damage with their weapons for the warriors. That could be something. Maybe classes will fall more into more than one category, potentially. Well, that's what I'm thinking. So you say perhaps they'll fall into more than one category, like warlocks could be a warrior mage. I'm going to assume that's where something like the Hexblade comes in. The Hexblade subclass allows you to get stuff or access to some of the things that are from the warrior type. That's how I think this will be handled going forward. All arcane spellcasters have meta magic. Yeah, I'm thinking something like that. And then give the sorcerer something unique to themselves would be very cool. Let's see. Mages could also get arcane recovery. Yep, you brought that. Several people have brought that up. But what's the sorcerer identity? Yeah, agreed. You know, there's got to be. I think sorcerers could get something new. Maneuvers. Yep. I would love to see more options for use of for the use of proactive use of reactions to more classes. Yeah, I think decent. I think every class should have. It doesn't need to. Not every class needs to have it, but it should possibly have a way to get access to something they could do with their action, something they could do with their bonus action. I don't know if I want everybody to have access to reactions all the time because I feel like that would take away some things that are certainly special. But as someone who's played Paladin many a time, depending on the type of Paladin you play, you usually don't have consistent bonus action economy. So having like that's like certain subclasses have a little bit more because they let you do something a little bit different. Also, again, we're going to see all of the spell lists that go from cantrips all the way up to level 9 tomorrow. So we can also possibly peer through and see if there's any new spells slipped in there. I don't think there will be, but we'll take a look. I'm certain monk is a priest and paladin is a warrior. You're not wrong. Monk, the whole concept of the acolyte asceticness of a monk could be considered a priest. Paladin could be considered a warrior. Those are again both possible options. Again, if we go with paladin, warriors getting extra attack, then paladin would get extra attack, and then maybe monk would get channel divinity. I don't know, or flurry of blows would be something that makes it unique. I'm very curious. This is. I don't know if it's come across. I think it has, but I'm very excited for what this could hold for us in the future. And I hope that it's executed on well so that I ultimately don't have to come back here and make either a video or a live stream with all of you where I am just depressed about how poorly it all went. Hit die deserves a bit of an expansion. Agreed. Oh, yes. For those who've missed it, ability score improvements have been subsumed into feats. Fighting styles, that also could be something. A barbarian or possibly a monk with fighting styles, very cool. Fighting styles could be something specific. That's also a really good option as well. Fighting styles being tied to the warrior. Historically, monks were and are priests. 100% agree. I get that. No extra track for rangers would also be rough. Again, but they may have some sort of like baked in hunter's mark or something that allows them to jack up the damage. Again, sneak attack is a way to do it. I don't know about the bard, but they're mostly spellcasting. Fighting style could be weapon expertise. Starts to sound like the old weapon proficiency. Yeah, it's what I was leaning towards, yeah. Rangers could be cool if they use one attack. We can build more damage, kind of Witcher style, possibly. Why is everybody assuming a paladin is automatically a warrior? I have from the start assumed a paladin would be the priest, not the warrior, but people are throwing it out there, so we'll see. Yeah, I would agree. I think I do. So I still stand by my prediction is monk, fighter, barbarian are the warriors, cleric, druid, paladin are the priests, warlock, sorcerer, wizard are the mages, and then we know the three experts, and then we know that artificer will also be an expert. Thank you everybody for the super chats as well. I appreciate that. Um, let's see, 48 subclasses for 12 classes. Does that mean that each class gets 4 subclasses? If so, how will they do wizard subclasses? I don't know. We currently have 41 subclasses in the player's handbook, but obviously most of those subclasses are eaten up by the wizard and the cleric. So, like again, I have something like the druid, which has 2, the barbarian, which has 2. Perhaps they will get 1 or 2 more, so that all the ones that only have 1 or 2 subclasses will get maybe 1 or 2 more than they normally did. Right? Give barbarian a third one, give bard a third one, give druid a third one. That puts us at 3. Let's see. Sorcerer a third one puts us at 4. Um, and then maybe add a couple extra in. I'm not sure. What if mages are given meta magic option and or an eldritch invocation? That could be something. I don't think they'd go invocation because that does feel too specifically warlock. Yeah, so the problem is like you're excuse me, something may lose an identity, right? If you give meta magic to all of the mages, then makes sorcerer unique? But meta magic, in my opinion, has always been more of a thing that was available to all wizards, not like to all spellcasters, not just sorcerers. They made that change for 5th edition. I think you could revert it and then give sorcerers something unique. I'm excited. Stellar Retribution. I'm excited at the concept of what we'll see, and it's going to be hard to get through tonight to wait for what's coming up tomorrow. PDF is not comes out tomorrow. Thank you, Sean Cornish. Yes, well, again, I owe you a video. You've been asking politely, so I appreciate it. So. Well, also, wow, hello, 685 of you hanging out here on a Wednesday afternoon when we're talking about something that we don't even have information on because the PDF doesn't come out till tomorrow. Sorcerer having its spell list determined by the subclass could be a way to make them have a better identity. That's a possibility. I would agree. Thoughts on them giving everyone epic boons at 20th level? How many times do you get to 20th level in your campaign? Have you ever? I don't look to balance things around the 20th level because it's very rare that people even get there in the first place. So I think it's fine. I'm curious to see what they do. Well, it's Wednesday afternoon for me. Let's see. What was I going to do? Oh, yeah. Well, Sean Cornish, look at you getting a level 20. Oh, Mr. Fancy Pants. Yeah, I would agree. Dropping the PDF and the video at the same time or even within like a little while after one another would have been ideal. So I'm not sure what the thought process was there. Okay. Let's go ahead and take a look at this. Let's take a look at the epic boons as presented. There's not that many. Actually, there's quite a few. But let's take a look at the ones presented in the Dungeon Master's Guide, because they said these will be the ones that will be updated to be a 20th level feature. Boon of Combat Prowess. When you miss with a melee weapon attack, you can choose to hit it again once per short rest. I don't really know what they would do to update that. I think maybe more times to do that. Possibly could make it that, you turn a miss into a critical hit, possibly. That could justify 20th level. Boon of Dimensional Travel, Misty Step. I would imagine you would get more access to Misty Step. Also, as an action, you can cast Misty Step, and Misty Step is a bonus action spell, so this one's a pretty poor example. Maybe you could just teleport non-spell specific proficiency bonus times per short rest, long rest. Boon of Fate. When a creature you can see within 60 feet makes an ability check, attack roll, saving throw, roll a d10 and add it to it. Again, I think one of the base things you'll see is this will either be kind of like an always on thing or something that's jumped up to more times per day, because this is something you're getting for getting all the way to 20th level. I mean, Boon of Fortitude just gives you 40 hit points. That's a pretty solid one. They might suggest that for something like the Barbarian. An extra 9th level spell slot. That's huge. That might just stay the way it is. You stop aging, you're immune to any of the effects of old age. I might throw something else in here, like immunity to disease or something like that. When you take damage from any source, you can reduce that damage to 0. That's pretty big. Maybe there's some more stuff to be tied to that. Boon of Irresistible Offense. You can bypass the damage resistance of any creature. That, that's great. Maybe even does it get past immunity too? Boon of Luck, you can add a d10 to any ability check, attack roll, or saving throw. That would have to be multiple times per day for sure. Boon of Magic Resistance, advantage on saving throws against spells and other magical effects. That's good, but there are items and other things that allow you to do that, so that would need something more. Perhaps you can negate a certain level of spells or something. Boon of Peerless Aim, just give yourself a flat-out plus 20 to a ranged attack roll. Again, that's once per short rest. That could be multiple times. Again, a 1 is still a 1, but you could add 20 to an attack roll if you roll low. Immune to all diseases, advantage on constitution saving throws, diseases and poison. This is a pretty solid one. Boon of Perfect Health, right? Because that's all con saving throws. Again, if concentration stays the same, that's pretty powerful. Boon of Planar Travel. Choose a plane of existence. You can now just teleport via plane shift there once per short rest. It also targets only yourself. Perhaps you could bring people with you. Boon of Quick Casting. Choose one of your first through third level spells as a casting time of an action. It now becomes a bonus action for you. That could be very big. You could also possibly have something that's like, you can cast, when you cast a spell as a bonus action, you're not only limited to cantrips as an action. That could be a really good one. Boon of Recovery. You can use a bonus action to regain a number of hit points equal to half your hit point maximum once per long rest. That's a pretty cool one. That could be also really neat for a Barbarian. Perhaps something where if you go down to 0 hit points, you can pop back up with half health. Something like that. It would be fun if you made a video showing off the 5e playtest material to show us how much actually changed. Yeah. You mean the OG 5e D&D Next stuff. We could look into that. We could do something with that. Okay, we could definitely do that in the future for sure. Boon of Skill Proficiency, proficiency in all skills. That's a pretty solidly powerful one. This one, Boon of Resilience. This is garbage. Resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, slashing from non-magic. There are classes that get just flat out resistance and then more some. Maybe immunity to bludgeoning, piercing, slashing from non-magical attacks. That could be a level 20 ability. Movement speed increases by 30 feet and bonus action dash or disengage. I would just drop this once per short rest. But yeah, 30-foot movement speed and free dash or disengage. Maybe you pick. Maybe it's you can at this point you choose, you can either take the dash or disengage action as a bonus action on top of the movement speed increase. That could be a good thing for level 20. Choose a first level sorcerer, warlock, or wizard spell. You can cast it at its lowest level without expending a spell slot. I mean, that's pretty solid. That's unlimited shields, right? Potentially. Are these expertise and tools? Are there expertise and tools besides Artificer? I don't believe so. Other than Thieves' Tools and Bardic Instruments, right? Those are things that those two classes have specifically. Boon of Spell Recall. You can cast any spell you know or have prepared without expending a spell slot. That's pretty good because it's any spell you know, so it could be a 9th level spell, for example. That one might stay just the way it is. You have immunity to fire damage and can cast Burning Hands. I wouldn't necessarily give it a save DC, but you can cast Burning Hands at will and have immunity to fire damage. That's pretty solid. Let's see. Boon of Night Spirit. While completely in an area, you can become invisible as an action. You remain invisible until you take an action or a reaction. That's not bad, but I'm pretty sure there's a Warlock Invocation that allows you to do basically the same thing. Born of the Stormborn, immunity to thunder and lightning, and Thunder Wave at will. I would say one of these for every damage type, right? But that would also mean you'd have to have spells that do other elemental damage at level 1. But an at-will spell casting as well as an immunity to damage is pretty cool. Advantage on ability checks made to resist being grappled. In addition, you can use your action to automatic. This should just be you are immune to being grappled. End of story. You have True Sight out to 60 feet. Constant True Sight is pretty solid. I can't argue with that one too much. And then you can get a +10 to Dexterity Stealth checks and can't be targeted by Divination magic. That almost, but like Pass Without Trace does something similar. So there's something there, but it's just at its base level, Burning Hands. Sonic damage is greater than thunder damage. I agree. I always liked the concept of sonic. It just sounded so much cooler, sonic damage as opposed to thunder damage. Well, they did also say that these were going to be reworked and adjusted to be epic boons at your level 20 ability. So some of these, like I said, that's why I offered somewhere I thought how you could change them to make them worthy of a 20th level capstone. Like flat out immunity to bludgeoning, piercing, slashing damage. That's a pretty powerful ability. That feels like a 20th level ability to me. Some of these other ones, like immunity to fire damage and unlimited burning hands, that's kind of solid. 30-foot movement speed, and then, you know, just flat out tacked on. There's some cool ones, but you can see, like, there are through lines here that can definitely be tugged and, like, teased out to be something a little bit more proficiency in every skill. Again, that's also potential to get proficiency in almost every skill just within the base game itself, especially with the skilled feat now being allowed to be retaken multiple times, but late game creatures do magic damage a lot more of the time. That's why I'm saying don't even remove. I'm saying remove this. Just flat out immunity to bludgeoning, piercing, slashing damage. Done. Yeah, spell without spending spell slot. Yep. But either way, there's some interesting ones, and they did say they would offer the option to, like, they would give you suggestions, like, oh, hey, if you're playing a barbarian, we'd suggest this, or perhaps if you're playing a warrior class, we'd suggest these options. But it ultimately is up to you to decide. So. Well, folks, this has been an absolute blast spending the past hour and 15 minutes with all of you. I've had so much fun. I love doing this. I love interacting with all of you, hanging out, chatting. Oh my god, a video on the Tome of Battle, Book of Nine Swords. Yeah, we could do a book on the Tome of Battle and the Tome of Magic. We could definitely do that if people are interested. People do seem very intrigued whenever I talk about D&D 3.5, especially those that were, one, fans of 3.5, or two, have never played it. They're always very intrigued whenever I bring sort of knowledge or things forward from that. So yeah, we could do a book, because that could also be an interesting way, right? The concept of how they basically made spells for martial characters at the end of 3.5 with the book, with the Tome of Battle, to kind of even out the gap between martials and spellcasters. So, anyway, I will be back tomorrow where we'll be doing a full review of the Unearthed Arcana document once it's present. So stay tuned to Nerd Immersion. I can't tell you when it's going to be because we don't know when the PDF is going to drop. So I will start the review as soon as possible. And we'll do a live review here. With all of you guys, we can interact and talk through things. So yeah, again, please consider subscribing to the channel. Tell your friends if you haven't. I'd love to have this be 100K. I'm shooting now officially for PAX Unplugged the first weekend in December. I would like to have this be 100,000 subscribers by then so we can throw a party and celebrate there. I'll have swag. It'll be a blast. We'll be able to have fun and do all of that. I do have plans for other videos and things that I'll be making in the near future. I'm also planning to increase my streaming, right? Right now, I currently stream on Tuesday nights, like with my friends in person, and we stream on Thursday nights where we do the Great Modron March, where I'm a player, and Jordan with the Silent PH in the middle is the DM. I would like to add more streams to this, whether that be character building, game design stuff, subclasses, magic items, game prep and world building design. I also wouldn't mind streaming things like Celeste Crown of the Magister or Baldur's Gate 3 or whatever else, just things like that to just pad out a little bit more. YouTube's really doing a lot of work to make their streaming a little bit more powerful. Plus, streams are a fun way that I get to interact with you guys outside of having to make a video. We can have a little bit more of a corollary back and forth. And things of that nature. Plus, it makes me feel like investing to buy more things like updated overlay packages and things like that. Makes me feel like that's not a waste of my time. especially when I have cool things like this where I can be like, look, now we're in a spooky thing. Ooh, spooky, you know? I don't know. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you all next time.